Yo, this shit was insane.
Akasaka, thank you so much.
Honestly, I owe you a lot more than this. And I'm sure Yukie won't hold it against you. I'm guessing she'll hold it against me a little bit, though.
Well, that might be the real danger.
Higurashi is about friendship. No, really. This is not only what the show presents itself as on the surface, but also in its core. Most of the series deals with the main cast characters and their relationships with one another. On the outside, it might look like a horror show about paranoia, bloodshed, and a creepy rural town that holds more secrets than the protagonists can handle. And you'd be right. The gruesome, mind-bending narrative elements are definitely there. But that's not the whole story. What really drives Higurashi isn't just the horror or the endless loop of tragedy. It's the characters' commitment to one another. The horror is just a backdrop, a way to test the limits of friendship. In the middle of chaos and madness, we see these characters cling to their bonds, and they try to rewrite fate and break free from the cursed cycle. It's this dedication to each other, this desperate need to protect and save their friends, that forms the emotional heart of the series. Every arc, no matter how violent or despairing, circles back to the same question. How far would you go to protect your friends? The show forces its characters, and us, to confront this question again and again, pushing them to the brink and asking them to make impossible choices. And it's through these choices that the true meaning of friendship is explored. At first glance, Higurashi feels like a slice-of-life anime set in a quaint village called Hinamizawa. The first few episodes introduce us to a small group of friends who seem to live an ordinary life filled with school, club activities, and lighthearted banter. We meet Keiichi Maibara, a new kid in town who's quickly adopted by a tight-knit group of local girls. Rena, Mion, Satoko, and Rika. They spend their days playing games after school, going on adventures around the village, and sharing inside jokes. It's all very wholesome, a nostalgic throwback to simpler times. For a moment, you almost forget you're watching a horror series. The bright, cheerful colors and upbeat soundtrack lull you into a false sense of security. Keiichi and his friends seem inseparable, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. They play all sorts of games, share meals, celebrate the annual Watanagashi Festival, a seemingly innocent event that showcases the village's traditions. But even in these early episodes, there are subtle hints that something isn't quite right. A lingering glance, an awkward silence, or a piece of local folklore that doesn't quite add up. Still, it's easy to brush these off as quirks of a small-town life, or harmless mysteries that will be explained in due time. The show balances this normalcy with an underlying tension. The friendships are real, the laughter is genuine, and yet, there's a sense that something dark is lurking just beneath the surface. You can feel it building, but for now, everything remains blissfully ordinary. The friends are happy, the village is peaceful, and you almost wish it could stay that way forever. The initial calm is essential because it makes what comes next all the more shocking. Just as you've settled into the warmth and familiarity of Hinamizawa, the cracks start to show. A chance encounter, a cryptic conversation, and suddenly, normalcy begins to slip. The first hints that something is off in Hinamizawa are delivered with a masterful sense of the uncanny. The show doesn't immediately bombard you with horror. It starts with the characters. You know them by now. Keiichi, Rena, Mio, Satoko, Rika. You've laughed with them, enjoyed their camaraderie. But then, one of them says something that doesn't fit. It's not what they say, but how they say it. A tone that feels just a little too serious. An expression that lingers a little too long. Keiichi asks a seemingly innocent question about the village's past, and Rena becomes strangely quiet. Her eyes narrow with an intensity that feels out of place. Or Mion, always so confident and playful. Suddenly she starts to take an almost sinister demeanor. Her words carry an edge that sends chills down your spine. These moments are brief, just flashes, but they stick with you. It's the uncanny valley of human behavior. Familiar, yet off. Like when Rena stands outside Keiichi's house at night, her normally cheerful face cast in shadow. It feels like someone just took a snapshot of the Rena you knew and warped it. And then there are the glances. The moments when one character looks at another with an intensity that borders on malevolence. You see it when Satoko watches Keiichi with a look that's half amused, half something else, something darker. Or when Rika, the seemingly innocent little girl we all know, suddenly speaks with a wisdom or wariness far beyond her years. Her eyes narrow as if she knows more than she's letting on. These small, unsettling moments are incredibly effective because they play with your expectations. You think you know these characters, their quirks, their personalities, but then something changes. It's like a record skipping a beat, and in that brief dissonance, you catch a glimpse of something darker. It's not outright horror yet. It's more like a whisper, a suggestion that maybe, just maybe, you're not as safe as you thought you were. It's this sense of the uncanny, of something not being quite right, that sets the stage for the true horror that's about to come. The show lulls you into a false sense of security with its idyllic setting and charming characters, soon to pull the rug out from under you. And when the horror finally does arrive, it's all the more terrifying. By this point, it's clear something is deeply wrong in Hinamizawa. Those earlier uncanny moments were just the beginning. Now, the tension starts to ramp up, and the show plunges headfirst into rising action. It's like an inevitable descent into madness, where the boundaries between reality and nightmare start to blur. It starts with secrets. Keiichi begins to notice inconsistencies in what his friends tell him, stories that don't quite line up, strange gaps in their knowledge, or moments when they seem almost too rehearsed. He hears about a curse, a string of mysterious deaths and disappearances tied to the Watanagashi festival. He starts to dig, asks questions, and that's when things unravel. The more Keiichi learns, the more the villagers, his friends, seem to turn against him. Conversations that once felt friendly now feel laced with menace. Every smile's a little too tight. Every laugh is a little too forced. And then the hallucinations begin. Or are they hallucinations? Keiichi starts seeing things. Shadows, distorted faces, blood where there shouldn't be any. He's not sure if he's losing his mind, or if everyone around him is just playing some twisted game. Keiichi can't trust anyone, not even himself. The camera work gets tighter, the music more dissonant, and every sound becomes a potential threat. The atmosphere grows claustrophobic, as if the walls of Hinamizawa are closing in around him. Keiichi doesn't know who to trust. The climax hits like a gut punch. All the tension, all the paranoia, all the mounting horror culminates in a scene so visceral, so intensely terrifying that you can't look away. It begins one night when Rena approaches Keiichi's house. She knocks on his door and asks if he'll let her in. He asks what she's doing there. Rena explains that Keiichi's mother asked Rena to make some dinner for him and bring it over. Keiichi, at this point, isn't sure whether to trust her or not. Eventually, he gives into his trust with Rena. He remembers all their happy times together. He remembers who she is. She would never hurt him, and so he embraces her. He feels guilty that he believed that she could be anything more than a friend. But he was wrong. Rena did come to hurt him.
I'll kill you and the demons will come and carry me off into the dark. My dad will be able to go on living his life here in peace. Yeah, that'd be best. Best for everyone, right? My soul belongs to Lord Yashiro now. Then there can be no escape!
After the climax, something strange happens. In the very next episode, everything resets. Rena is alive again. Keiichi is fine, and none of them have any memory of the horrifying events that just unfolded. It's like the nightmare never happened. The village of Hinamizawa is once again peaceful and serene, and the friends are back to their usual antics, laughing, playing games, enjoying their carefree days. This is the moment I started thinking, what the hell is going on? It's disorienting to say the least. One moment you're knee-deep in horror, and the next it's like someone hit the rewind button. But this isn't just a flashback or a dream sequence. This is an entirely new loop. And just like that, they're back to school days. The cheerful facade is back in place, the haunting memories wiped clean. But as the episode progresses, the familiar pattern begins to emerge once again. At first, everything seems normal, almost too normal. The everyday routine of school, club activities, and village life plays out like before. But now the sense of unease is stronger because you know what these characters are capable of. You've seen the darkness within them, and you're left waiting for it to resurface. Sure enough, as the days go by, those unsettling hints start to creep back in. You know what's coming, but you're powerless to stop it. The tension begins to build again, and you start to notice new details you might have missed the first time around. There are moments when a character's smile lingers just a little too long, or maybe when they mention something that makes you wonder if maybe, just maybe, they remember something too. A fleeting expression, a slip of the tongue, small cracks in the facade that suggests not everything has been forgotten. And then, as the loop progresses, we're once more shown glimpses of something horrible and ugly lurking behind the scenes. The rumors of the curse, hints of a conspiracy, stories of past tragedies. These elements resurface once more, and now they're tinged with a deeper sense of dread. It's as if the village itself is trying to tell us something. It's trying to warn us of the horrors buried beneath its picturesque exterior. And yet the characters go about their days, seemingly unaware of the dark fate that awaits them. But the audience knows better. We've seen how this plays out. The eerie feeling that something isn't right grows stronger, and the show plays with this tension, keeping us on the edge of our seats. Each new episode feels like a ticking time bomb, counting down to the inevitable moment when the horror will erupt again. And when it does, it's even more shocking, because you thought you might be prepared this time, but you're not. You never are. This looped narrative structure adds a whole new layer to the storytelling. It's not just about the scares or the violence. It's about the psychological toll of experiencing the same horrors over and over again. It's about the futility of trying to change a fate that seems predetermined, of trying to escape a nightmare that always finds a way to start anew. And as the loop continues, the question shifts from what is happening to why is this happening? Why are these characters caught in this endless cycle of suffering? What are they supposed to learn? Or is there any lesson at all? This is where Higurashi really starts to dig its claws into you. The mystery deepens, the stakes get higher, and the psychological horror becomes more intense. The repetition isn't just a gimmick. It's a tool to explore the limits of the human psyche, to push both the characters and the audience to their breaking points. And it's only just the beginning. With each new loop, each reset, the terror escalates, leaving you with a chilling realization. In Hinamizawa, the cycle of horror never ends. As the story continues through cycles of horror and despair, a discovery comes to light, something that changes everything we thought we knew about Higurashi. We find out that one of these seemingly innocuous characters, Rika, is not just a passive participant in these twisted events. She's a looper, someone who retains her memories across these endless resets. This revelation makes sense of so much that seemed inexplicable before. All those moments where Rika seemed wise beyond her years, those cryptic comments, the fleeting glances, filled with the kind of knowing sadness, it all clicks into place. Rika has lived through these loops countless times. She's seen her friends suffer and die 1,000 different ways, and every time, she's forced to watch it all unfold. Now everything changes. The looping mechanic isn't just some abstract horror device. It's a personal hell for Rika. Each reset isn't just a fresh start. It's a cruel reminder of her failures, her inability to save her friends. She's been trying time and time again to alter the events, to find a way out of this nightmare's repetition. And suddenly, her strange actions make perfect sense. Her uncharacteristic moments of solemnity, the way she seems to understand more than she should, it's because she's been through all this before. We start to see the loops not just as standalone stories, but as part of a larger, more desperate struggle, Rika's struggle. Her actions now reveal themselves as an attempt to change fate, to manipulate events in subtle ways, hoping this time things will turn out differently. Her innocent games and comments are actually strategies. And with this new perspective, the stakes are raised even higher. Now, it's not just about surviving the next loop or uncovering the village's dark secrets. It's about understanding Rika's plight. As viewers, we start rooting not just for survival, but for an end to her suffering. The loops become more than just a plot device. They're battlegrounds, in Rika's war against her own fate. And as each loop passes, we see her resolve waver. We see her hope flicker. Each event chips away slightly more so at her psyche. Now we understand sometimes why she seems resigned or detached. Because how many times can you watch your friends die before you start to lose hope? How many times can you fight the same battles, make the same choices, and hope for a different outcome? This revelation reframes our understanding of the other characters as well. How much do they remember, consciously or subconsciously? Are their actions influenced by some residual memory or some instinctual fear? You start to wonder if deep down they sense the cycle, if that's what fuels their paranoia, their shifts in behavior. And with Rika's struggle laid bare, the horror of Higurashi takes on a new dimension. It's not just the physical violence or the grotesque imagery that chills you. It's the torment of an innocent trapped in a loop of never-ending tragedy, trying to save her friends from a fate she barely understands herself. The true horror lies in the futility, the creeping fear that maybe there is no escape from the nightmare. Now, the tension is at an all-time high. With the revelation that Rika is a looper, the stakes are more personal and urgent than ever. We watch Rika struggle desperately, pulling every thread she can to change the outcome of this latest cycle, to finally escape the torment of Hinamizawa's curse. She becomes more assertive, more determined, but there's an undercurrent of fear, because this time, something feels different. The events leading up to the climax are fraught with intensity. The atmosphere in Hinamizawa grows increasingly oppressive. Rika takes bolder steps to alter the course of events, to steer her friends away from the paths that lead to their doom. She tries to keep Keiji from asking too many questions. She keeps Rena from her paranoia. She attempts to soothe the rising tensions within the group. For a moment, it seems like she might succeed, like the cycle might finally be broken. But then, everything unravels again. And then comes the most mind-blowing scene of the season, when everything seems like it's going right, when Rika finally feels as though she's found the perfect loop. Someone in the group betrays them all. Satoko pulls out a gun and points it at Rika. Satoko isn't just a pawn in the curse's game. She's also a looper. We see it in her eyes, those same looper eyes that we've come to recognize in Rika. The mark of someone who remembers. She's not acting out of blind rage or insanity. She knows exactly what she's doing. The final episodes reveal an incredible twist that completely reshapes our understanding of Higurashi. Satoko is revealed to be the true antagonist of the entire show. The revelation is stunning, a twist that we never saw coming, and yet looking back, it all makes sense. We've watched Satoko struggle alongside her friends, endure the horrors of the village's curse, and even suffer from the devastating loss of her family. She always seemed to be a victim, someone caught up in the cycles of suffering like Rika. But as the final episodes peel back the layers of her story, we realize that Satoko isn't a victim. She's been pulling the strings, orchestrating all the town's horrors. We see Satoko and Rika make it into the elite academy that Rika had dreamed of attending for so long. At first, it seems like a victory, a happy ending for both of them. Satoko is loyal to Rika, so she follows her into this new world, eager to be by her side. But almost immediately, we sense something is wrong. For Rika, the Elite Academy represents freedom and a new life full of possibilities. But for Satoko, it's an alienating and suffocating place. The rigorous academics, the pressure to conform to a refined and cultured school, it's all too much for her. Satoko struggles under the weight of the homework, the expectations, the unspoken social codes that surround them. Even worse, she starts to feel the growing distance between her and Rika. Rika has quickly adapted to this new territory. She's made new friends and immersed herself in the academy life. But Satoko finds herself increasingly isolated. At first, it's subtle. Rika doesn't mean to pull away, but her duties and interests slowly diverge from Satoko's. Rika flourishes in this new environment, but Satoko suffers. The loneliness begins to eat away at her. She longs for the simple, carefree days of Hinamizawa, when she and Rika were inseparable. But now, it seems like Rika has left her behind. Watching Satoko's descent is painful, because we can see how much she loves Rika. Every little rejection, every missed connection adds to her growing resentment. She tries to hold on, but the harder she clings, the more distant Rika becomes, swept up in her new life. The academy was supposed to be a shared dream, but now it's become Satoko's nightmare. Slowly, she feels Rika slipping away, and this causes Satoko to unravel. Satoko finally snaps. Her love for Rika, twisted by loneliness and abandonment, transforms into something darker. She can't bear to see Rika thrive while she withers. The jealousy, the bitterness, it culminates in a moment of devastating clarity. Satoko realizes that she will never truly be happy as long as Rika keeps pulling them toward a future that doesn't include her. What makes this twist so heartbreaking is that we understand why Satoko became the way she did. We watched her suffer. We saw the pain of losing her best friend, her only constant in a world that neither of them could escape. And when Satoko is revealed to be a looper, we see that her desperation to keep Rika by her side has driven her to horrific lengths. She is no victim to the loop. She is its creator. She's always manipulated it, bent it to her will in a misguided attempt to keep Rika from leaving her. And in the final episodes, as Satoko reveals her looper eyes, we see her resolve. It's such a great twist because it redefines everything we thought we knew about the series, but it's also deeply tragic. Satoko's motivations come from a place of love, but it's a love corrupted by fear and insecurity. She doesn't want to lose Rika, but in trying to keep her, she destroys everything around them, including their friendship. Her free will, symbolized by her looper eyes, is what makes this all the more devastating. Satoko chose this path. She chose to kill Rika because she believes it's the only way for them to be together. Higurashi leaves us with a final heartbreaking realization. The true horror of the story isn't just the violence or the curse, but in the way love, twisted by obsession and fear, can turn even the closest of friends into enemies. The season's finale takes us into the twisted journey of Satoko, revealing how she gained her powers. Through hundreds, perhaps even thousands of loops, Satoko honed her skills, refining her ability to manipulate events, twisting fate itself to her will. At first, Satoko was like Rika, lost in the loop, desperate for an escape. But unlike Rika, she didn't seek freedom, she sought control. With each reset, she learned more, trained harder, and experimented with different outcomes. She perfected each life, training herself to control every variable. And as she did, she descended further into madness. The loops became her weapon. She became greater than any other human, far beyond the grasp of normal time and consequence. Every time she failed, she simply started again. We watch her manipulate her friends, orchestrate events behind the scenes, and slowly craft a version of the world where she held all the power. In the process, she loses touch with the humanity that once bound her to Rika and the others. The sweet, innocent girl we once knew is now a cold, calculating mastermind who sees the world and everyone in it as a piece on a chessboard. In the final episode, we witness the culmination of Satoko's horrifying evolution. She acquires her most powerful weapon. We've seen glimpses of Satoko's increasing ruthlessness, her willingness to go to any lengths to bend the loop to her desires. But now it comes ahead when she steals the deadly virus, the one capable of pushing the villagers into madness. This virus, which has been a lurking threat throughout the series, is now fully under Satoko's control. It is her ultimate weapon, the key to breaking Rika's spirit. Satoko knows that to truly dominate Rika, to keep her from ever escaping or thriving in the new life she dreams of, she must crush Rika's will. And what better way to do that than to ensure, no matter how many times Rika tries to change the outcome, no matter how hard she fights, the virus will always be there. We watch the final moments of the season as Satoko sets her plan into motion. She no longer needs to physically harm Rika or even confront her directly. The virus will do all the work for her. Satoko stands victoriously, staring around at the thousands of loops she's already lived. claiming that once she decides to win, her victory is certain. For Rika, the battle is no longer just about escaping the loop. It's about surviving the very person she once called her closest friend.